Welcome to Kadampa podcasts. These podcasts offer practical solutions to daily challenges and help guide us to a happier and more peaceful state of mind. In each episode, you will find an extract from a teaching given by one of various Kadampa Buddhist teachers worldwide. All these teachings are inspired by the profound wisdom of Venerable Geshe Khalsang Gyatso Rinpoche, a Buddhist master for our time. We hope you enjoy listening.
So I think normally we're not sort of surprised at the idea of like, ooh, I have a disturbed mind. I think I should meditate. I think that's when a lot of people develop an interest in meditation, is when their disturbing states of mind are so intense and so relentless and all pervasive that they have to find something. They have to do something because there's just no relief. You know, oftentimes maybe we have so much busyness and agitation and stress and anxiety, we can't sleep. You know, even our downtime isn't downtime. It isn't restful. And that's often when we start to think, okay, well, maybe I need to meditate. You know, maybe I need to learn how to meditate. But I think that, that's sort of not uncommon when it comes to disturbance. When it comes to distractions, we're not necessarily as aware of the value of meditation. You know, we don't necessarily think, oh, I'm really distracted. I think I should learn to meditate. It's sort of a pervasive natural state in our society right now to be distracted and to be inattentive and to be, you know, kind of pride ourselves on multitasking, things like that, where we're not just able to focus on one thing. And so it's not surprising that we find it hard actually to meditate, because meditation always involves some level of absorption, mental absorption or single pointedness. But I think that the more important point I wanted to make is that there's a relationship between allowing our mind to be distracted and our mind becoming disturbed. So there's, you know, we're all kind of keen to get rid of mental disturbances, but we're not as keen to develop sort of like overcome mental distractions. But oftentimes that's what leads to the disturbance, right? Is the distraction. So we allow our mind to wander. And where does it wander to? Trouble, right? Gets us into trouble. So when our mind is free to wander, where does it wander to? You know, if we watch our mind and we evaluate, we can see, oh, yeah, it commonly goes to, you know, past events, hypothetical future events. And before we know it, we kind of are recalling things that either have disturbed us in the past, and then we kind of reignite that flame, or could potentially be a disturbance later today, tomorrow, next week, a hypothetical future that we fixate on and are disturbed by even before we encounter it. So it's very important to kind of understand that as much as it's important to overcome disturbances using meditation, it's also really important to use meditation to help reduce distractions, you know, just so that our mind is less cluttered. It's more clear, more spacious. There's more room. And there's more room to see what's actually going on in our mind, and where certain states of mind, certain thoughts are taking us, because they're taking us somewhere. And if it's somewhere we don't want to go, it's better to figure that out before we get there, right? Before we arrive at the destination of disturbance. It's better to see, oh yeah, if I keep indulging this way of thinking, these views, these thoughts, that's where I'm going to go. So I think we just have to watch. You know, we're going to do an exercise in a moment regarding watching, but I think we can all see times where we've had that ability to kind of trace back different thoughts and see where they came from. I don't know about you, but a lot of times I've noticed this when I've found myself, you know, trying to go to sleep, and then, you know, you realize after a while you're not asleep. And you're like, well, why am I not asleep? And you're thinking about stuff. And you're like, well, why am I thinking about this stuff? And you can start to see this sort of train of thought. It's really kind of fascinating. So you're trying to go to sleep, and all of a sudden you're, you know, thinking about Joe's repair shop. And you're like, why am I thinking about Joe's repair shop? I'm meant to be going to sleep, you know? And then you're thinking, well, I was thinking about Joe's repair shop because I was thinking I need to get the car in to get an oil change. Well, why was I thinking about that? Well, because I was thinking that tomorrow I got to take the metro because I shouldn't drive the car because I've been having car trouble. Well, why was I thinking about that? Well, because I was thinking about what time I need to leave tomorrow. Why was I thinking about that? You know, like we start to trace back, don't we? You know, to where that sort of train of thought took us. Most of the time we're not aware. We're just following We're just following. We're ending up in all these different places during the day. We're just sort of letting our mind wander, and it's taking us wherever it's taking us, whether we want to end up in those places or not. But I think where we begin to see that we have some liberty and some ability to govern the mind is using meditation. We can discover, there's many tools that we can develop, mental tools, to actually be more deliberate in where our mind goes, where it takes us. And we develop some greater abilities to kind of divert or reroute or, stop going in a particular direction if it's taking somewhere we don't want to go. So the meditation we just did on the breath is a meditation that helps us clear the mind. And I wanted to read a little bit about this particular meditation because it's an easy meditation to start with for anyone. Anyone can do this meditation. And it's helpful to kind of understand the process and some of the benefits. So in a book called The New Meditation Handbook, it says, we begin by sitting with our eyes partially closed and turn our attention to our breathing. We breathe naturally, preferably through the nostrils, without attempting to control our breath. And we try to become aware of the sensation of the breath as it enters and leaves the nostrils. This sensation is the object of meditation. We should try to concentrate on it to the exclusion of everything else. So with this exercise, what we're doing is we are removing our focus or withdrawing our focus from anything external, right? Anything that's happening or is about to happen. We're just withdrawing our focus from it and turning inwards. Sometimes that in and of itself is a training. It takes some training to withdraw, like remove ourselves from the activities of the day, remove ourselves from the preoccupations we've had, and go in, right? Turn our focus in. And when we're beginning meditation, that stage we shouldn't rush through. If we're not familiar with going in and withdrawing, we need to give ourselves some time to do that, even before we begin to focus on the breath. Just really getting ourselves centered inside and not outside can take some time. Because it's like, maybe like a child, that wants to go in another room, and you bring them into one room. Second you turn your head, they're in the room again. Like they've darted off into the next room. You bring them back in, dart off into the next room. So sometimes our mind is like this. It takes a while to get it to come in and then to stay in. It sort of wants to dart off somewhere else. So we need to take some time and be patient here. And then once we feel like we have some ability to turn our awareness inside, then we focus on the breath. So the beauty of basic breathing meditation is that the breath is always there. So it's a great tool to train in concentration with. We're going to focus more on concentration next week, but it's an easy object to anchor our focus to, because if we lose our concentration and our mind wanders, it's easy to return it to the breath because the breath is always there. The other thing that's powerful about breathing meditation is the breath is always current. It's always momentary. It's always in the present. So by focusing on the breath, we're always present. We're always in the moment. It stops us from going into the past or the future, which most of our distractions are based upon. If you check, mostly when we're distracted by something that might happen later, we're going to do later, or what we've done before. So we're trying to kind of become present, like right now. And so because our breath, the current moment of the breath is always present, it's a present moment, then it gets us to be kind of awake to now, like the now, not the what was before, what will be, but the right now. So when we do breathing meditation on the breath in this way, we turn our focus to the rhythm. We don't change it in any way. So it's not like other breathing exercises where we might control the breath for a certain purpose. This type of breathing meditation, there's no controlling the breath. We're not judging it. We're not analyzing it. We're like, it's too shallow. It's too deep. It's too long. It's too short. We're not doing that. We're just letting it be. Like whatever our breath is in that moment is completely fine. Whatever its natural rhythm is, totally fine. And then we just begin to follow it. A little bit like following that rhythm. Like when you're walking on a beach and you watch the waves come in and the waves go out and the waves come in and the waves go out, and you don't try and control the waves. You can't control the waves, but you can enjoy the process of following them, watching them come in and watching them go out. Similarly with the breath, we're like enjoying that rhythm, whatever it might be, shallow, deep, we're just watching it. And when we develop some ability to kind of steadily observe the breath, then we can kind of intensify our focus to become aware of the sensations associated with the breath. So to do this, as being mentioned here, we focus at the tip of our nostrils, and we try to become aware of the cooling sensation when we breathe in and the warming sensation when we breathe out. And as we observe and begin to notice those subtle sensations, we try to focus on them, like absorb into them, which seems kind of funny, like absorb into the tip of your nostrils. But please do, if you're doing this meditation, it's very helpful. So that basically the idea is that everything else except your awareness of those sensations falls into the background. It's not that you have no thoughts or ideas or distractions pop up, but they're not in the foreground. You're not following them. They're in the background. Just like background noise when you're in a restaurant or a shop. You're not paying attention to every conversation happening around you, but there's like this murmur of it. It's the same way. Initially, there's like a murmur of our distractions and disturbances, but we're not giving them our time and attention. We're mostly just aware of those subtle sensations. And the longer we can stay on the subtle sensations of our breath, then the more those distractions and disturbances will stop. They'll start to subside or stop. So this is talked about a few paragraphs later. It says, if we practice patiently in this way, gradually our distracting thoughts will subside, and we will experience a sense of inner peace and relaxation. Our mind will feel lucid and spacious, and we will feel refreshed. When the sea is rough, sediment is churned up, and the water becomes murky. But when the wind dies down, the mud gradually settles and the water becomes clear. In a similar way, when the otherwise incessant flow of our distracting thoughts is calmed through concentrating on the breath, our mind becomes unusually lucid and clear. We should stay with this state of mental calm for a while. So what's being said here, I think, can be very helpful in terms of kind of analyzing for ourselves what our own experience of a busy, disturbed, or distracted mind is like, which is, equivalent here to water with sediment that's been churned up. So like if you think about, there's a cup of water here. If I had, say it was a jar, let's pretend there's a lid, right? And there was dirt in it. And then I was shaking it up and shaking it up and shaking it up and swirling it around and shaking it up, then it would become muddy, wouldn't it? And it would be very hard to see through that liquid. Like you can't really see through muddy water. You can't kind of, make heads or tails of muddy water. Like what's on the top, what's on the bottom. It's just a mess, isn't it? It's just like a cluster of things swirling around. But if you put the water down, you stop shaking it, right? And you let it just be still. What happens? All that sediment that was churned up through the shaking, it just drops. It drops. And then the clear water, is revealed on the surface and becomes clear, becomes easy to see through. So it's a little bit the same. If we're constantly thinking about and reacting to and sort of feeling like we've got to do things and be things, so we're constantly shaking ourselves up all the time. And so it's like whatever is going on in there, in addition to the shaking, it's like it turns it up and it's just like muddy water, right? It's very hard to be clear about what to do next, clear about, what's most beneficial or constructive way of dealing with this situation. What's a solution? What's making the problem? Who am I? Who are they? What is this? Like we're not clear, right? Just sort of like fleeting emotional reactions and ideas and thoughts that we're then following in every direction. And no wonder, I think in these times, it's so common people feel so overwhelmed, so stressed, so confused, so anxious, so busy-minded, right? So meditation is sort of like a tool, like this kind of breathing meditation. It's like we're giving ourselves the freedom to just be still for a second. We're trying to get our mind to be still by focusing on the breath, which is actually neutral. It's a neutralizing effect on the mind. And as we, engage in meditation, like he's saying, the otherwise incessant flow of our distracting thoughts is calmed through concentrating on the breath. And then our mind starts to become unusually lucid and clear. It's like that sediment drops and there starts to be some clarity, some lucidity about things. We start to feel more balanced. We have a state of mental calm, which makes it much easier to be happy, much easier to do what we have to do, complete a task, sleep, eat at the right time in the right way. Like all those things become much more natural, much easier to do. So it says here, even though breathing meditation is only a preliminary stage of meditation, it can be quite powerful. We can see from this practice that it is possible to experience inner peace and contentment just by controlling the mind without having to depend at all upon external conditions. So this is incredibly liberating because a lot of times we are waiting to be happy or whole for external conditions to change. Like for our experience to change, we think things have to change. And then as a result, we're sort of ending up feeling kind of discouraged and depressed because we're like, I can't force things to change. I can't make them happen. I can't make people change. I can't make people behave. I can't make this situation work the way I want it to work. And so we end up in this conundrum. Like we want to be happy. We want to be peaceful. We want to be free of stress, free of anxiety, free of worry. But it's so tied to the external that we feel like it's just not possible. And then we're just enduring, like laboring through. But what we discover through our own experience of meditation is that by allowing ourselves to experience some inner peace, even just through focusing on the breath, that we'll be able to control our mind. And in controlling our mind, we experience a state of peace that doesn't depend on external conditions. It's not tied to the external. It's completely unrelated to what is going on outside of ourselves, which we can't control anyway. So in that place, there's an incredible hopefulness and optimism because we're like, oh, I can feel completely different, even though everything is the same externally. So that gives us an incredible optimism that I think, is one of the great values of meditation, is we discover like an oasis within ourselves that we can take with us wherever we go, whatever we're doing, that doesn't depend upon being able to change something external that's happening. And I'm not saying that we can't make efforts to change things, but the point is that we need to have peace of mind regardless, right? Regardless of what's going on. When the turbulence of distracting thoughts subsides and our mind becomes still, a deep happiness and contentment naturally arises from within. This feeling of contentment and well-being helps us cope with the busyness and difficulties of daily life. So much of the stress and tension we normally experience come from our mind, and many of the problems we experience, including ill health, are caused or aggravated by this stress. Just by doing breathing meditation each day, we will be able to reduce this stress. We will experience a calm, spacious feeling in the mind, and many of our usual problems will fall away. Difficult situations will become easier to deal with, and we will naturally feel warm and well-disposed toward other people, and our relationships with others will gradually improve.
If you feel inspired by this podcast, then dive deeper into timeless wisdom of modern Kadampa Buddhism by following the link in the episode description. We look forward to reconnecting with you in the next episode of Kadampa Podcasts.